Hey there, baseball fans. Nathan Rohde and Shooter Hunt here, bringing you the latest episode of Coffee and Curveballs. Shooter, I can see it. You are on the East Coast, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I got my good backdrop working here. Pumped to be on the East Coast, get to see some baseball. Finally, that spring weather's rolling through that we've been talking about for months, it seems like. But really excited to be back here.
The weather is good in North Carolina. It looks like it's getting better in the Northeast, although I did see our guy in New York, Jared Carrier, sent you a photo of flurries up in New York.
I brought the good weather with me. We're going to be good the rest of the week.
That's what I like to hear, especially considering I will be making my way to the Northeast next week. So hopefully that weather makes a turn and sticks around. But let's talk about some recent action. If you haven't seen it on the website yet, go there now, prepbaseballreport.com. The high school draft 100 is updated. We're about 5 weeks out from the draft now, so there's definitely a lot of moving around. The top 4 remains intact, but there's a new number 5 in Carter Stewart, right-hander out of Florida, who is showing the velo to go with that breaking ball that we're used to.
Yeah, just speaking with some scouts as I've been out this spring, they've been raving about him. That velo is, popped up to that 96, 97 level, and you throw in that curveball, which is, pretty high-level curveball, to say the least. Might be the best breaking pitch in the draft from the high school standpoint, but that's going to help him jump, and he could find himself into that top end of the first round by the end of it.
Yeah, he certainly could. He's in the top 5 in the high school class. Mason Denneberg's still ahead of him in Florida, but you could make an argument for Stewart, given that Denneberg's been dinged up a little bit recently. I still think Denneberg showed enough early on to kind of solidify himself, even if he isn't fully healthy. But Stewart, obviously, very much in that conversation, so high up in the class, and we very likely could see him as a top 10 pick, come June. But a few other guys, really a lot of Florida guys made jumps this spring. It's a pretty rich class in the Sunshine State. Connor Scott, has made a jump and is a probable, likely first rounder thanks to his tools. He's a 60 to 70 runner, showing some hitability from the left side. Same high school as Kyle Tucker, who we saw go 4th overall a couple of years ago. Scott was on the showcase circuit last summer and played well. He's been a prospect. He's been on the radar, but I think he had like an emergency appendectomy at the end of the summer last year, so he missed some time. He's taken full advantage of the spring, though, it seems like, and he's definitely rocketed up boards. But real quick, a couple other guys. Lyon Richardson, arrow up. We saw him at the Florida preseason classic. He's got electric stuff. Scatters it from time to time, but it's a pretty quick arm. So he's one to watch. Quick. And then Gunnar Hoglund, shooter. I mean, we've been hearing, pretty good reports from our Florida guys about him for a while now.
Yeah, definitely. He's been a guy who's been a two-way for a while, an Ole Miss commit. But this spring, we're talking about there's some numbers being thrown at 95, 96, where he's gotten that fastball up to, and things seem to be coming together for him. Which over high school, he's finally starting to grow into that big physical frame, and putting it all together with a good spring here is going to help him come draft time.
And what's really stood out with Hoglund for me is our guys have been in twice to see him, and we've heard the reports of him being up to 95. Our guys didn't see that velocity from him, but they still came away saying, this guy's really good. So if he's pitching well and showing good stuff, locating, and doing it without that big velo that everyone seems to be talking about, that's an even better sign because it's showing kind of that secondary stuff that we look for in a pitcher of, after the velocity, like, okay, can he pitch? Can he locate? Can he throw his secondary stuff for strikes? And it seems like he's doing that. So certainly a guy to watch and, a spring rise, obviously a spring riser.
Absolutely.
So, but we got a change in North Carolina, shooter. Jordan Adams is the new number 1 in the state, jumping over your man, Owen White.
Okay, I mean, it's nothing, no shot at Owen White. Just sounds like Jordan Adams is having a great spring. And I mean, that athleticism that he brings with him where he can play, wide receiver commit to North Carolina. I'm sure guys are loving to see that. And it seems like he's gotten to play a lot, and you've gotten out to see him, and he's performed while everybody's in attendance.
Yeah, he really has. And like you said, it's no discredit to Owen White. he's still way up that top 100 list and will be, pretty high up on that combined list. Looking at him as kind of like a second rounder, number 3 starter. But Jordan Adams, with his tools, I mean, they just scream first round. He's at least a 70 runner. I got him 4.0 down the line at the NHSI, which is an 80. He's been more consistently around that 4.1 range in the games I've seen since then. He gets a little big at the plate with the swing sometimes, but it's quick hands, quick bat, and I saw him hit a home run, stayed short and quick to the ball, almost dead center field, probably about 375 feet the ball traveled for his first home run of the season last week. So just an electric player and athlete.
Wow. I'm sure the scouts are going to be all over that, especially later on in the spring with the state of North Carolina having such a great college season, just hanging around the triangle and getting some eyes on him and bringing in some big wigs to check him out.
No doubt. So, and then in Texas, we've got some guys that, made a jump up the rankings. One of them you saw in Adam Kloffenstein on your swing through the Lone Star State.
Yeah, he's been one of my favorite arms, if not my favorite arm of the spring that I've seen. With Avila wasn't there the day that I saw him on an overcast day that lacked some energy, but him jumping up to that 95 mile an hour range where he's 92 to 95 with feel for 4 pitches. That athletic body, wide shoulder, he's going to get even bigger. I think he'll throw even harder, has a chance to be one of those, number 2 type starter in the future moving forward.
Yeah, and another example of one of those guys that you walked away from a game loving him, and he didn't show the velocity that we've been hearing about or saw later on in the spring.
Yeah, it wasn't there that day, but it was one of those, if he makes a jump, this is a real guy, because even at the plate, I think he hit a home run. He's had probably close to 10 home runs in the season. Yeah. The athleticism that he moves around with is something that I really like to see, because you can project more with the arm strength moving forward. But the feel for the secondary stuff, and even his ability to throw a really nice changeup, which you don't see much at the high school level. And I know we're not a big changeup podcast and show here.
Spin wins.
But his changeup's really good to go along with that curveball and slider, which I really think are going to get better. I'm not sure if he knows exactly what he's doing yet, but it's impressive stuff even if he doesn't.
Certainly. And then another arm that makes a big jump in Texas is Grayson Rodriguez. Credit to and big shout out to Toby Bicknell, our director in Texas. He was on Grayson Rodriguez from the start. He saw him really good as a junior in the spring. Rodriguez came out in the summer and it was inconsistent, showed some arm strength. He's got that big frame, but the secondary stuff was inconsistent. Fastball velo wasn't quite there. And he has come out this spring announcing his presence with authority. He's been up to 97, showing a breaking ball. So he's jumped back up to number 2 in the state, and we've got him shoved way up the top 100. Very easily could see him going in the first round as well. So,
shocker, Texas guys throwing hard. Here we go.
Exactly. So, Shooter, last week you got a little college action in, and you saw the Oregon State Beavers. Tell us, you got to see Nick Madrigal come back, but you also got to see Trevor Larnach.
Yeah, Madrigal's come back from his wrist injury early on, and he hasn't missed a beat. After about 8 weeks off, he just has come back and hit and continued to do so. He's probably the most exciting player in the country at the college level, where he comes to the plate, and he's not a big guy. He's probably about 5'8", 5'9", second baseman, but he just finds a way to get it done, and he's on everything. He really good pitch recognition, sees the ball early, picks up spin, and just has a flair for the theatrics and getting that big hit in a big situation. I think he a little bit out of shape right now after that time off, but by the time the end of the season rolls around, I'll see them again against UCLA later on in the year. I think he'll be back to his impressive level.
Excellent.
And then Trevor Larnach is a guy I've watched for 3 years now, continue to get better, and he's just taken professional big league type approach to the plate. The ball sounds different coming off his bat. He faced a couple tough left-handers in the game I was watching, and it meant nothing. He's up there completely balanced, ball screaming off his bat. He's got power to both gaps, drives the ball to the opposite field. He looks like the guy who's really catching that helium and could end up in that top 15 type picks.
Yeah, he's certainly a big bat. I remember seeing him at the NHSI a few years ago. and just walking up on him in BP and just seeing that sweet left-handed swing and that frame. You knew once he filled out that he was going to really start mashing some baseballs. So good to see him coming into his zone.
Yep.
Out of California, we got a report from Les Lukacs on right-hander Julian Tristan. He's a two-way player, really long and wiry strength in that frame. I think he's like 6'4", I want to say 185. But Les saw him last week and really liked him on the outing that he saw. He said he was 88, 89, up to 90. It's kind of a three-quarter, maybe a low three-quarter slot. But the athleticism and the whippiness to his game just kind of makes you dream on the player. Just when you look at him, you're like, okay, he's not a high-end guy right now, but you could easily see everything kind of clicking and him taking off, if he gets a chance at the next level.
Nice.
So let's get into some underclassmen now, Shooter. You've got a host of updates, a trio in Ryan Ramsey, Thomas Keene, and Ryan Cornelio.
Yes. So, Ryan Ramsey, how can I not talk about a Jersey guy on the show? But he's really been good this spring. 2019 Maryland commit. They got him earlier on, even before the velocity had popped, but he's jumped up this spring to 87 to 90. Really good breaking ball, which he's striking a lot of guys out with. It's easy, loose arm. Looks the type of a weekend starter, has a chance as a freshman. He's continued to get better each week, each outing that he's out there. So he's one to watch going into the summer, who I'm sure will make some noise, especially as a left-hander. Thomas Keene, two-way guy from Maryland, DeMatha High School, which is stacked with underclass talent. I really like him at the plate. I think he's just a gamer, athlete, gotten thicker over the last year, had a really good showing at the PBR Maryland preseason event. But just the physicality, he can run his fastball up there into the low 90s. But I really like him as a bat. I think he'll probably end up shifting over to third base. Good athleticism, drives the ball. He's hitting over 430. Got a few home runs, few doubles, few triples. Does it all for DeMatha, but really holds it down in the middle of that lineup. And then Riley Cornelio out of Colorado. He's a TCU commit. Worked 88 to 91 the other day. Really good breaking ball, but it's a quick, loose, whippy arm. I don't want to throw up the comp to Cole Winn, who's another Colorado, just because I don't want to put that pressure on Riley because, Cole Winn's looking like a top 10 pick possibly.
Right.
But Riley has that wide frame or wide shoulder frame, athleticism, long, gonna continue to add some strength to it. He was probably 87, 88 in the fall, but it's continued to rise up to that 91 range. And I think he's got even more in the tank coming this summer and moving forward. And being out of Colorado, he may not get that attention just because of the competition. I think he's in a smaller group in the state, but this summer could be his coming out party on the circuit.
Yeah, it sounds definitely interesting. It's always fun to watch those Colorado arms because the state's certainly known for producing them. But I actually, much probably to your surprise, ventured off of the draft trail last week a little bit.
Oh my!
That's good acting. You should get an Oscar for that, there, Shooter. But I got to see Nolan McLean, who is number 2 in the state of North Carolina in that 2020 class, and pretty high up in the 2010 or 20 rankings, and you can see why. I only saw him hit, and the word is that he's pretty good on the mound too. That may even be his upside. Not 100% sure yet. Granted, he is still just 15 years old, so we'll let that play out. But at the plate, he's a force to be reckoned with. He hits the ball hard, got that big, strong frame, wide shoulders. Saw him just obliterate a ball for a home run. I'm not sure how far it traveled, but it was a no-doubter off the bat.
That was a bomb.
Yeah, you can see the video in his profile. It's the one with a little bit of the bat flip at the end. He knew he got it.
A little spice in there.
Solid athlete, moves decently at third base. He flashes some arm strength over there. Like I said, didn't get to see him pitch, but I would really like to because I'm sure it's pretty interesting on the mound. So we'll see. He's uncommitted, so we'll see how that plays out for him. He's one of those guys where if he was committed right now, I wouldn't be surprised as high level sophomore, but it seems like he might be taking the process slowly with good reason. taking
He's
a
going to
little
have to wait
slower
to
than
take
his
any
peers.
visits now, too, until September.
Right. That's true. He's got to wait now with those changes to the rules, which, if you're not familiar with, jump on prepbaseballreport.com and check out our podcast. I'd be surprised if you haven't listened to it yet because it's been listened to about 2,000 times already. But Brandon Hall gets on with us and we go into all those changes the NCAA made recently. But let's wrap it up here, Shooter. What is next for you?
Well, I'm be locking it down in Jersey, seeing some talent here, possibly getting up into New York, and then headed back to the West Coast after that. So gonna get to check out some action out there. But the college season is heating up right now. We got some big conference play coming down the stretch, so I will be locked in from the command center, enjoying those games as well. What about you?
Nice. Well, I think just because it's so easy and because I'm home, go check out Jordan Adams again. And like I've said before, I'm not really going to see him anymore. I know what he is. I like him. I'm going in to take a peek at what teams are in there and try to get a feel for what's going to happen with him a month from now when we get to the draft. So I'll take a look at him and then kind of get some organization and scheduling together as I head out to the Northeast next week. Go up there for a week. So we'll talk more about that next week because I don't leave until the following Thursday. But that's on the horizon for me, so I'm certainly looking forward to it. But the 2020 rankings have been updated. We're going to get on a podcast with Sean Duncan that's exclusively about the 2020 rankings. So be sure to jump on prepbaseballreport.com. It's on SoundCloud. It's on iTunes. We've also got the weekly Roadshow podcast where Shooter and I will talk about much about what we talked about here, but a little bit more in depth as well as other topics. So be sure to check that out as well. The High School Top 100, as you know, has been updated, which also means with that and the college list being updated, a combined list, the PBR draft board, an update is coming to that as David Seifert and I are working to hammer that out. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. But Shooter, thanks as always for joining me today, bringing your insight to the show, which is Coffee and Curveballs. For Shooter Hunt, I'm Nathan Rohde, and until next time, we'll see you guys at the ballpark.